In the wake of the shootings in Chattanooga, Governor Greg Abbott has authorized members of the Texas National Guard to carry firearms at their facilities. The governor says Texas military personnel should be able to defend themselves. 4 Marines and 1 sailor died in the shooting at 2 military sites. U.S. military officials plan to review their no weapons policy at recruiting and reserve centers. So should the no weapons policy be eliminated? That's our topic this half hour. And we want to hear from you on our Fox 26 Facebook page. You can also weigh in on Twitter using the hashtag Fox26forlife. Joining us live in our newsroom is our Roundup panel. It's led by our senior legal analyst, Chris Tritico, our news analyst, Mustafa Tamiz, and public policy analyst, Jackie Bally. Good morning again, guys.
Good morning.
So Governor Abbott and governors in a few other states have acted to protect the National Guard. Should Army recruiters, active duty Army recruiters, be allowed to protect and arm themselves as well?
You know, I don't know how we can continue with the policy that we have. Let me give you a little history lesson. Up until Bill Clinton's presidency, military personnel on bases were allowed to carry their weapons. Bill Clinton issued an executive order banning that practice, and it goes as deep as the commander of the base can't just give out weapons to the military personnel when he perceives or she perceives that there's a problem on the base. It's a very restrictive policy. Bill Clinton entered it. I have looked, and I cannot find Bill Clinton's justification for issuing this executive order, but it lasted through his presidency, through George Bush's presidency, and now through Barack Obama's presidency. After Fort Hood, many of us thought that maybe that the president would change that executive order. It has lasted. Now we've had a second one, Mustafa Tamiz. I can't think of a justification why we don't allow the best trained people with guns in the country to have them.
Look, I don't know. I don't know what the military justifications are, but I'm hoping that that gets reviewed and solved. But this is a tragic shooting, and this is the second time that this has happened. We have to do more about countering violent extremism. I don't think our federal government or our state government or our municipalities are doing enough, because we're seeing these type of random shootings come up, and serious thought has to be given to that.
So let me, 2 questions, Jackie. You know, as I told you off the air, you get more return fire if you rob a Walmart than you do if you go on a military base. And do you think that we ought to be looking at this, reevaluating this policy that's been in place almost 20 years now? Secondly, Mustafa said, and I agree, we ought to do more to stop this in the country. How does the government, federal or state, identify a single individual who may be radicalized or radicalizing?
Okay, let me try to remember all those questions. But, first one, yes, I do feel that we need to reevaluate, and I think that the governor was correct in saying that we should arm our military men and women. And I think both of you made statements that I agree with, believe it or not.
Wow.
I agree.
Mark that down.
I know, believe it or not, because I do feel that our best trained men and women should be the ones armed and ready to protect themselves. We have, I mean, these domestic acts of terrorism, we're being so politically correct, we're not calling it what it is. ISIS is something that's growing all around us, and a lot of people don't want to address it because they feel like, oh, we don't want to offend anybody. ISIS is, they're attacking Muslims more than they are Christians and Jews. They are extremists, and they are on our own soil. So we need to do something in identifying them. And one of the things, to answer your last question, one of the things we need to do is to start realizing that they're here right now, and start surveying and monitoring a lot of people who the FBI agents have been warning us this was coming for some time. So they do have hints of who they feel are involved with ISIS.
All of my research indicates they had no idea about this guy in Tennessee. So I want you to expand on what you said. How do we identify these people that are all by themselves, that may be radicalizing and reading this stuff and becoming more radical? How does the government identify those people?
I think we have to look at this problem differently than we are. We look at it like a law enforcement problem in terms of, but we're not trying to prevent things from happening. So I'll give you an example. In our healthcare system, we don't do a lot in prevention. We pay a lot of money afterwards because we didn't prevent a particular disease. Same thing lies with this. There's a whole policy around countering violent extremism. And extremism just doesn't come from one faith. I mean, we've seen that in South Carolina shooting. Extremists are recruiting people on the web. And so we should be dealt with the same way we deal with pedophiles, the same way we deal with sexual predators on the internet that are looking for vulnerable people and try to recruit them and pull them into the system. Once we start thinking of this from that standpoint, that there are recruiters on the web that are preying on vulnerable folks and trying to turn them in, rather than, hey, these are extremists because they follow a particular faith, we're going to be more effective at trying to tackle this problem.
How about that? I mean, I just see that a lot of issues in trying to set up web pages to attract people in that want to be radicalized.
Yeah, this particular gentleman, though, his father was a suspect of being, suspected of being someone who was an extremist and someone who could do exactly what his son did. So his family was under scrutiny to begin with, and for some reason his father was dismissed. This young man in particular, a lot of his friends said, well, he was just a normal guy, just like me and you, and then for one reason or another, when he went to Jordan and came back, something switched, something happened. But he was giving hints on his social media pages about that switch. He was telling people, there's something that's going on within me. So he was giving some hints to some people.
Okay, I want to expand on that when we come back. Hang on, I'm going to go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media.
Okay, let's take a look at Twitter first. A tweet from Bob coming in. He says, arm recruiters and other stateside GIs, period. It's that simple. If you're not going to defend them, President Obama, let them defend themselves. And then this one from J. Jones Wesley says, we need to arm every U.S. serviceman, rather on post or off. Our recruiters, unarmed, make easy targets for radical extremists. And he uses the hashtag prayers for the families.
Well, you know, it seems to me, Sally, that the country is coalescing around the idea that the military ought to be able to be armed. I still don't have a justification for why Bill Clinton did that or why it's remained the policy as long as it has. As I said earlier, you know, in Texas, in an 8-hour class, we'll give you a license, let you carry a gun just about anywhere you want, but we won't let someone who we trained for years and years and years on how to use a weapon arm themselves. It just doesn't make any sense. I want you to expand on what you were just about to talk about.
Yeah, so it's not that you're surveilling the people that are looking at the content. What we have to do is go after people putting the content out overseas. And that's what we do with sexual predators. You look for people that are trying to recruit kids and you go after them and enforce the law against them, and that's how we should look at this.
And Jackie just made the point, this young man was posting on social media hints and things. We have talked on this show, I don't know how many times, about the NSA looking at our private stuff. What's the difference there?
Well, again, we're a country of 320 million people. How many people do you want to how do you do the surveillance? It's just not possible. But what we really have to do is do the kinds of things, do the things in the mental health area, a number of other places to try to counter violent extremism.
Final thought.
We also have to look at the current administration. There's been a disconnect and a discord between the military and the current administration. They refuse to say that ISIS is ISIS. They refuse to acknowledge that these are extremists. There's some kind of they're in la-la land. And so until they finally realize that we have terrorism right here, right next to us, there's very little that's going to be done.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. We'll be back next week wrapping up the hottest stories of the week.
All right, we look forward to seeing you guys then. Thanks so much for the great discussions this morning. Have a great Sunday.